Hi guys, can you hear me clearly? Can someone just confirm? Are you able to hear me clearly? Hi guys,
Yes, yes,
can you
yes.
hear me clearly? Can someone just confirm? Are you able to hear me clearly? Okay. Hi guys,
Yes, yes,
can you
yes.
hear me clearly? Can someone just confirm? Okay, all right.
Yes, Sachi, yeah, we can hear you.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much for joining in. I think the last few days, last 48 hours, I guess, have been really chaotic for many of you. And the main objective of setting up this Q&A was to address these concerns and, to come up with some sort of a solution and a strategy for what to do over the next few weeks. So this webinar is obviously focused on, the recent appointment delays and the cancellations, but it's not limited to that. We are open to taking up any concern that you have about the H1B visa. And the agenda today is basically to cover social media screening, any other questions related to 100K petition delays, and of course, the visa appointments and, what's the way ahead. So feel free to ask your questions. You can either put it in the chat box below. So Zoom has a chat box, so you can put it below. This is also live on YouTube. So for those of you who are watching on YouTube, feel free to put it in the live chat box. We'll take questions from there as well. And you can also, unmute and ask your questions. So we're going to have an immigration lawyer who will join us shortly, and she will give you like an update as to what all has happened till now and what all information they have gathered. And post that, we're going to open up for the questions. So you can raise your hand and I'll unmute you, and you can also, ask your questions. So that's the whole agenda. Before we start, just to get a quick sense of the audience, how many of you are in India and how many of you are in US? If you can just type in the chat box and tell me India or US. Okay, majority of you seem to be in India. And those who are in India, how many of you have had your appointment rescheduled already? And how many of you, the appointment is still intact? So just let me know if it's rescheduled or still valid. Okay. For those of you in the US, I think there's quite a bit of you in the US. Is your appointment booked or you're yet to book? Okay, got it. So I think majority, everybody here either has an appointment booked or rescheduled. That's the primary composition. Fine. So given this, I think primarily we'll be talking about the appointment reschedules which have happened, what's the way ahead, and then we'll take up the rest. Do you guys have any questions on social media screening? Till the lawyer joins us, we can discuss that. So all of you must have filled the DS-160 form by now, I'm guessing. So any questions on social media screening or any doubts? Let me know, we can address that first. If you want to ask any question, just raise your hand and I can unmute you. So any questions related to social media screening? Have all of you filled your DS-160 form? Just let me know a yes or a no. Okay. I think some of you are yet to fill the form. So we'll also be releasing a very detailed video on the social media screening part, I think by tomorrow. And that video will give you, the step-by-step process of how to declare, how to check whether your accounts are actually showing up or not. So do stay tuned for that. I will be sharing the link with you guys personally as well. But because we saw the same thing happen for students, so we have a sense of how exactly social media screening works. So keep a watch for those videos. I think Gabriella is here with us. Gabriella, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear well. Hi, everyone.
Hi. Gabriella, so we have with us people who are, either they've started the H1B process, their biometric is already done, or they have booked the appointment and the interview is yet to happen. So maybe you can start by telling us a quick introduction about you. We would love to know more about your background and your experience. And you can start with a quick update as to what all has happened till now. And we have questions from the group, so we can take it up. Does
Sure.
that sound good?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Gabriela Urizar, and I'm an immigration attorney at Manifest. And I have almost a decade of experience handling immigration issues, specializing in assisting some of the largest businesses in the world with work visas, student visas, H1Bs. And now we're here today to provide a little bit of information and feedback about what's been happening, especially with the latest updates regarding immigration by the new administration. As we know, recently there was an announcement that there was going to be more vetting for H1B applicants and H4 applicants when they apply for a visa. Now they're also going to undergo a heightened scrutiny, and also their social media platforms are going to be scrutinized, and the government is going to search for anything that's inconsistent with their applications or anything that they deem as of national interest. And as we know, this also happened a few months ago with other type of visas, like for example, student visas. What has been happening, especially in the last 24 hours to 84 hours, is that we're receiving a lot of reports for H1B H4 holders who had scheduled their visa appointment at the US Embassy, especially back in India, and now their appointments are being rescheduled or canceled. And of course, people are panicking. And it's just a reminder for people that this doesn't mean that their visa appointments are going to be denied or their applications are going to be denied. It's just the officers have received this guidance of doing a further scrutiny on applications, which requires more time, and they don't have the time or the availability to continue keeping all of the appointments that were already scheduled and then conduct a deeper analysis in terms of the new guidance from the government for social media. So, Sashi, we can move forward and ask and see what type of questions people have, and then we can talk about my guidance as an immigration attorney for people who are either waiting for an employer to, get their visa appointment to go back to the US, or someone who already has an H1B and is planning to travel back home to get a schedule, what steps they can take to protect themselves, what are the best approaches in terms of immigration and moving forward.
Yeah, sure. So, Gabriela, the questions we have today are from two, three different domains. One is, of course, related to this, the appointment delays. There are also some questions related to social media screening and the 100K rule, still some, clarifications required. So, I think we'll take up the questions as and when they come. Guys, if you have any questions, you can raise your hand and you can unmute. I mean, I'll just call out your name and you can unmute. Uh, I'll just give you some time to raise your hand. Meanwhile, we have some questions in the chat. I'll just start with those first. So, Kunal asks, what would you recommend for travel schedule in first week of January? Should we cancel just to be safe?
So I think it depends on every case scenario. What the general guidance and the more conservative guidance that immigration attorneys are giving foreign nationals right now is to avoid travel unless it's absolutely necessary, because immigration is changing very fast. When new laws are coming out, we're not really seeing a grace period of a few weeks for people to plan. It's being implemented within 24 hours, right? So we don't want people to be stuck outside of the country and not have the ability to come back into the US. And there has been some very reliable reports that the administration is currently working on expanding the travel ban, the list of countries that are not permitted to come into the US unless there are certain circumstances. So we don't want people to be stuck out. If you are in the US, you have current status, and you're thinking of traveling abroad to extend your visa for, let's say, work-related matters or just for visiting families, speak to your immigration attorney, make a plan, and if you can avoid travel, it is what's being advisable, especially now.
Okay. I think the next one is really important. So Chaitanya is asking, in case of appointment delays and stuck overseas, his appointment got rescheduled to, I think, March. How should we communicate with our employer and what should be done if earlier appointment is not available?
So in terms of, this is a really good question that keeps coming up. In terms of people that are already outside of the US, right? They're stuck and their appointments get rescheduled further away. The first thing is to speak to the employer. Speak to the employer and come up with a plan in terms of maybe if you haven't started with this employer already, maybe working towards pushing forward the start date, right? Or talking to the immigration attorney that handle your H1B to see if there is any way that you can work abroad. But you have to be very careful with this one because, for example, H1Bs are tied to allocation.
Yeah.
So if you're working after a certain time or too long abroad, then that could be a little bit problematic. Now, what other options that you can have is continue to check and monitor the availability of visas. And I know this is very difficult, but people have been lucky when they monitor the visas like in the middle of the night or like very early in the morning when other people have canceled their appointments. There are going to be a lot of people who are going to cancel their appointments who are not in the US. I mean, not abroad, they're still in the US, who are going to stay in the US grounded just to be safe. So keep looking, keep monitoring to see if you can snatch one of those early appointments.
So, Gabriela, I think for his profile and many of the others, they're already working with the employer for quite some time. Like they started with them on, their OPT or STEM OPT and transitioned to H1B in October. So, for such cases where you already have this relationship with the employer, what are the options? Is it possible to still work remote or combination of leave and working remote or anything else that can be done?
Right. So that depends on the company's policies, but we have seen it. We have seen it where the employee is able to have a conversation with the employer and they're able to come up with an agreement of perhaps staying abroad for a few months, working remote, before activating the H1B, right? And you can always activate the H1B later and then come into the US with an activated H1B and a new visa stamp. But if you're working for a US employer, just be mindful of the tax implications, especially in the country where you're working. So open communication is key. But I've definitely seen that arrangement with employers.
And this will vary from employer to employer, not a standard, is it? Okay,
Exactly.
all right. I think Meghna has a question. Meghna, would you like to ask?
Hi, this is Srikant Meghna's husband. So I have a question. Like we already submitted our DS-160 application, and we have an appointment on January 21st, and our biometric is on January 13th. So as per this new scenario, like if if what are the social media platforms that we need to include, and what if we already submitted our DS-160? Let's say if I miss to add my LinkedIn, so what is that based on that? Is there any negative impacts on my H1B visa, or like how what are the things that we need to make sure in our DS 160?
So if you have already completed your DS-160 and you have already provided your social media handles, the officers reviewing your application will likely go and check those handles. So my first advice is to keep the handles, especially the handles that you provided in the application, public so that the officers are able to go in there. The other thing that I advise people is to do an audit of their social media, their LinkedIn, and to clean it up, right? Anything that could be misinterpreted, anything that could go against what this administration is pushing forward. Try to clean it up, try to review it, try to clean it up. Just keep in mind that an officer might be able to look at this. Also, if you didn't include a social media handle, but your name is tied to a social media and an officer is able to look you up and find it, also I would recommend to keep it open and public. And then if you're able to go to the interview and you didn't include some of the social media handles and the officer asks for any other social media handles, also I recommend providing the additional social media handles. But we haven't received specific guidance from this administration in terms of exactly what they're looking for. And also we haven't received reports of foreign nationals, especially on H1Bs, that have been denied because they had something on their social media. Usually, people on H1Bs are professionals. They're aware that they have to keep a professional social media presence and footprint. And we really haven't heard any situations where they've been denied because of what they had on their social media.
So far there is no specific number of social media accounts that we need to specify or must include in the DS-160. There is no guidance on that, right?
Exactly. When you're filling out the DS-160, they usually ask you to provide all your social media handles. So,
Yeah.
the most popular ones, I would say LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. If you have a TikTok, just be truthful because they're able to find you, especially if it's tied to your name. So it's important to disclose information.
But if we miss to give one, then we can directly let them know at the time of interview.
Right. So
Yeah.
if you're at the interview,
No need to submit another DS-160 with an
right. No,
empty.
I wouldn't recommend submitting another DS-160. I would just, bring that information when you go to your interview and just disclose that information with the officer if they ask for further information. And my approach, especially with interviews at visa appointments, is to not offer additional information. Just provide the information that the officer is asking, because sometimes people think that by giving them a lot of information, it's going to be helpful for their case. And this just opens the door for further scrutiny. So just answer clearly, concise, very direct. Don't provide more information than what's being requested, and then you should be fine.
Thank you.
And just quickly adding on to what Gabriela is saying, in India, you can update your DS-160, at biometric. So you still have that option, just for your information, that you can still declare whatever you want and get the form updated in the biometric. In fact, we're going to be coming up with a detailed video on this soon. So yeah, we'll send it to you once we are done.
Thank
Next
you.
question is from Abhijit. Abhijit, would you like to ask?
Hey, hi, am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
So I have a H4 dependent appointment scheduled in month of January for my newborn son in India. So it's only the appointment for my kid. Me and my wife already have a visa stamp. So I just want to ask a question. He's not on any social media yet because he's just a newborn kid. So I have filled his DS-160 without any social media platform information. Is that still okay?
So since the application for the DS-160 refers specifically to the applicant, I will say you're likely okay. If you want to be safer and provide your social media handles, since you are the H1B main applicant, you could do that as well. And again, just be mindful of what information you have on your social media,
Okay, thank you so much.
of course.
All right. Taking up some questions from the chat. Gabriela, so the point that you mentioned previously that, you can monitor and track the appointment. So one of the questions was about if an appointment is available, is it safe to just go ahead and book it, or do you need to wait for the guidelines or instructions from the embassy?
If an appointment is available and you
Yeah.
have the documents to book it, you're able to book it. In terms of guidance from the embassy, I'm not sure to what they are referring to. Perhaps the social
So I
media.
think so I think what they mean is that because the original appointment got shifted to March, and now while tracking if they're able to see an earlier appointment, is it okay to just go ahead and book an earlier and overwrite that, reschedule which has
Right.
happened by the
Right.
embassy?
You can always do that. Just keep in mind that you are gonna lose the appointment in March.
Yeah. Okay. But you have the new appointment and hopefully that goes through, basically. Okay, got it. All right. So I think you've answered this, but just quickly, I think this is the most common question, that what is the advice for people who are planning to book their H1B visa stamping appointment working in US currently?
So people who are already in the US and they have an H1B approval and they just want to book an H1B visa, first of all, to speak to your employer to have a plan of approach in terms of coverage. If you're going to be out for a few months, you can start looking for appointments. Again, the recommendation that attorneys are giving right now is to avoid travel outside of the US unless it's absolutely necessary or you have a family emergency or it's related to work, but trying to stay grounded, especially now that there has been a lot of changes regarding the H1B. But then in terms of scheduling an appointment, you have an approval, you really shouldn't have an issue in terms of scheduling the appointment and attending the appointment. But again, keep monitoring the news, speak to your employer, and make sure that all of your documents are, that anything that's required from the specific U.S. embassy in the city where you will be attended, that you have everything.
All right. The next question says, I just got my H1B consular process approved and I have to travel to India for stamping as my F1 visa gets approved in a few months. I don't know if he means expire. Should I still be planning for stamping or try to apply for a change of status amendment? Is this really required?
It is not required for you to get a new visa stamp, especially if you are inside the US. The visa stamp is different from the status. The visa stamp is just a travel document. It just helps you to enter the US when you travel outside of the US. If you are inside of the US and you want to either extend your status or change to another type of visa, you could file a change of status within the US, right? And then USCIS will likely issue the change of status while you're here. So you can just, as soon as it gets approved, you can, automatically you jump into the new status and you can continue living and working or studying in the US. However, there's some situations where USCIS doesn't approves the new time and approves the new visa, but doesn't approve the change of status or extension of status for any reason, right? Like they have a lot of authority, but mainly it's when people have a gap of maintaining valid status in the US, or if USCIS wants to do a deeper background check, they will issue the approval with consular notification, which means that you do need to leave the country and go to make an appointment with a US embassy abroad and then activate the new approval. So just keeping that in mind that it could be a possibility, but it's not a requirement for you to get a new visa stamp or visa sticker. You want to extend or change into a new status.
All right. Vishwajit, you have a question? Do you want to ask?
Yes, sir. Actually, it is not related to appointment. It's about the interview that I had in past. So the thing is, like during the interview, officer asked me to, share some of the documents, like ask your employer to share text transcript document to specific email address. I mean, return email address. So they provided me these details, and then I conveyed the same thing to the employer. But they kind of refused to share any text transcript related document to the consular, or I mean to the provided email. And then eventually I received email from them their end, like saying that we have not received required documents or supporting information and all. And now the thing is that their official email address even is not kind of reachable, I mean employers. So is there anything that I can do in this scenario?
So for this situation, you currently have an H1B?
No, the status is kind of refused right now. It's not approved.
He had the petition approved and then he applied for the visa interview. So all this has happened during the visa interview in India.
So the visa, okay, so the interview, the visa stamp got denied.
Yep. At the embassy interview, he was asked to submit the tax-related documents
From
from the company. Yeah.
I see. Yeah. So fortunately, you're very limited in this situation because work visas are owned by the employer. They're the petitioners and they're the ones who are filing and own the petition. So if they're not willing to provide documents that are being requested by the embassy or by USCIS, you really are limited to the options that you have, other than transferring your H1B to another employer and having to reapply for an H1B visa stamp based on the new H1B.
Gabriela, one
Okay,
question.
so
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, go on. Go on, Vishwajit. Yeah.
so when you said like transferring H1B, so is it like completely new process entering into the laboratory again, or because it is still in refuse state? So how exactly that H1B transfer can work here?
So I think what I don't understand is what was refused, the visa stamp or the actual H1B?
The visa.
Actual, yeah, yes.
Okay, so your petition, you got selected for the lottery and then you got approved for the H1B.
Yes, yes.
So once you get approved for the H1B, you get selected at the lottery and then you get approved for the H1B, you don't have to re-enter the lottery. you can just, if you have a new employer, the new employer can file an amendment with USCIS just to change the employer. And then once it gets approved, they usually.
Let me correct again. So his petition got approved, but when I attended the interview at the consular interview, so there it got kind of I received 221G, yeah, 221G, which is kind of refused. So that's the scenario.
Right. So you don't have to re-enter the lottery. I think the best approach will be to find a new employer and have the employer file an amendment and amending the employer and getting a new H1B with a new LCA. And then once that H1B gets approved with USCIS, with that approval, you can make an appointment at a US embassy and then attend the visa stamping and get the visa based on that. Because it is very, very difficult to get the visa stamping now approved if your employer is refusing to provide the documents that the embassy is requesting.
Will
Okay.
100K fee be applicable if you change your employer? Because I think that's a very common concern. If he changes the employer, will the 100K fee be applicable?
So it will likely not be applicable. The guidance that the government has provided is that when it applies, right? It applies when a petition is filed after September 21 of this year for a foreign national that was outside of the US at the time of filing and didn't have a visa stamp available, right? Any petitions that were filed prior to September 21 don't get that 100,000 fee. Also, let's say a foreign national that was outside abroad, and then they filed the petition while he was abroad and after September 21, but they had a valid visa stamp, it doesn't apply. So you have to meet both. You have to be outside of the US and not have a visa stamp and be a new H1B file after September 21. Or if the petition is sent as consular activation or notification, that's when it will likely apply.
Okay.
In my case, petition approved last year only. So
Right. So likely will not apply because it's not a new petition that's going to be filed. But again, it depends on the government. They have full discretion and authority to determine whether or not the fee applies.
okay, thank you.
All right. Om, you have a question? Do you want to ask?
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you. Om, you can go ahead. We can hear you. Okay.
Yeah, am I audible now?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry if this was already addressed before, but I just had a surgery today, so I got a little bit late in joining. I want to ask, what about H1B applicants who are currently stuck in India because our consular appointment got postponed to, March or April. Like we had already planned for like a 1.5 month of trip and, got approval from our company for those many days, specific leaves, and now the appointment that we are getting is beyond that trip, and we cannot stay that long here, obviously for work because of work restrictions.
But you have an approved H1B already, right? Like you were just going for a visa stamping?
Yes, I had my renewal, my third renewal of my H1B. My last H1B visa stamp got expired obviously in October of this year. So I came to India for getting my new visa stamp on my renewed H1B visa.
So you still
So
have time on your visa stamp. So your visa stamp is still valid for more months?
No, it is not valid. It got expired in October of this year.
Okay, got it. So in terms of what can you do? I feel like the first thing you can do is speak to your employer, have a plan of approach. Of course, keep him informed with what's going on, and also remind him that just because the appointment got pushed and the new guidance of the government came out doesn't mean that your H1B or the visa stamp will get denied. It's just the officers and the embassies and consulates need a little bit more time to implement the further background check. Now, the other thing that you can do in terms of trying to get an earlier appointment is that there are going to be a lot of cancellations, especially from people who are still in the US and they don't want to risk it. They don't want to leave the country. They don't want to attend their appointments because they're seeing what's going on. So keep an eye, especially in the middle of the night, early, very early hours in the morning. Keep an eye on the availability of appointments. Slots are going to open up. So if you're able to find a slot that's sooner than their scheduled day that they gave you, you're able to book it, but you will lose the later date, right? So just keep monitoring that, speak to your employer, have a contingency plan, and keep them informed and updated with what's going on. And again, this is a changing environment, what's going on with immigration. We don't know what the administration is going to say, let's say in a few months. Keep in mind as well that the US is preparing to receive the World Cup, and they are putting forth guidance that they're trying to expedite the availability of visa appointments abroad. So we don't know what's going to happen in terms of the availability. Right now, it can feel a little chaotic because the um, guidance just came out, and officers themselves are still waiting for further guidance from the government as to what they have to look for in terms of when they screen the social media of applicants. So to be safer, they're just pushing everyone out and rescheduling their appointments. But we don't know if they're going to open more appointments. We don't know how people in the US are going to react. So keep on top of it, keep informed, and keep monitoring the availability of the appointment so you can snatch one of the earlier appointments.
And guys,
Okay,
just
thank
to
you.
remind you that you can always take help of immigration lawyers like Gabriela from Manifest Law, and you'll be able to reach out to her and the rest of the team. In fact, we'll also be sending you a link at the end of the session through which you can book a session with them and also get some concessions on that. So yeah, so feel free to seek the help of an expert or immigration lawyer if you feel that your case is complicated. Next we have Rahul. Rahul, do you want to ask the question?
Hi, Shachi. Thank you, and thanks, Anna, for organizing this webinar. So I have a question related to the 100K. Just for context, my H1B I-797 is valid through April 15 of next year, like 2026. And I came down to India for my H1B renewal. And my consular appointment on December 16 has been rescheduled to April 17th, which is 2 days after my I-797 validity. So assuming that I cannot get a rescheduled date before that, if my company applies for a new I-797 while I'm in India to recapture dates that I have spent in India during this trip, and then I apply for like a new visa stamping, will this be a consular filing and then subject me to the 100K fee for re-entry?
It will depend on how USCIS views this situation, but you likely not, and you can make the argument, like I speak to the immigration attorney that will be filing the extension and the recapture to be able to include an argument in the support letter or the cover letter saying that this $100,000 fee doesn't apply to you because you already had an H1B. You already had an H1B, and then you're just going for a visa stamping. But again, it really depends on how the officer sees this. If they view this new application, this extension as totally new, rather than just an extension, they could likely apply it. But you don't know until you file it and you get the approval. But a good approach will be to file the extension of this H1B and then provide a statement on the cover letter saying why this shouldn't apply to you. And then in parallel, you can continue to monitor the visa availability because it would be best if you're able to snag an appointment earlier, as soon as possible, so that then you're able to re-enter the country. Once you're inside the US, then they can file for an extension of status because you're in the US, and then that really wouldn't apply because it's an extension of status. So that would be the best approach for you to be able to get into the US before they file for the extension of status.
Yes, that is obviously the first priority. I was just concerned that I might not get an earlier appointment. But thank you for addressing my concern. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Lalis, you have a question?
Hi, thank you, Shaji. Hi, Anne. So my question is more or less related to the 100K requirement. So I'm planning to travel for the first time in the second week of February. So I want to know, what are the procedures that I need to follow? What are the steps that I need to follow? And what are the requirements that I need to meet? So I want to know, what are the steps that I need to follow? And what are the requirements that I need to meet? And I know that I do not fall under the 100K bracket as my petition was approved before. And in last October, my visa got stamped, my H1B visa got stamped. But still, I hear from multiple sources that I may still be asked about the 100K at the port of entry. So I just want to know what would be my best thing to do. It's like, should I proceed with my February travel plan? And what should I respond if the CBP officer asks me about the 100K requirement?
That's a very good question, and I'm so happy you asked because a lot of people have the same question. In terms of, I think you're obviously right. It doesn't apply. You have a valid visa stamp. You have an approved H1B that was approved before the new guidance came into play. What I would recommend you do is travel with your approval notice, travel with your, of course, your valid visa stamp, and then travel with a copy of the guidance that the government put forth in terms of when the $100,000 fee applies. Because in the guidance, it clearly states that it doesn't apply to people who already have an approval and already have a visa stamp. So be sure that you carry that, and also be sure that you know a lot of immigration firms have an emergency number that they're giving the foreign nationals that they're working with, so that when they're in situations like this, for example, they're stopped at the port of entry or by CBP, they're able to call the attorney, and the attorney is able to speak to the CBP officer or guide them through the process. But in your situation, I wouldn't worry. I think being prepared and being knowledgeable of the law is your best approach, and you really shouldn't have a problem trying to re-enter the US with your valid visa stamp and your valid approval notice.
Yeah, sure. I really appreciate it. And I'm not re-entering US because this is the first time that I'm traveling. So
Yes, no, of course, it's very understandable that you're anxious,
yeah,
especially in this climate. Very
sure.
understandable. But you're in a good situation,
Yeah. Thank you, Anne.
of course.
Pravalika, would you like to go next?
Yeah, thank you, Shachi. I just wanted to check, like, what is the process for applying for an expedite request? Like, how does that work? Because now currently I have talked about this process with my employer, and they're like ready to give the supporting documents that I'm needed for the in the US soon. So like I just wanted to see how does the process work, and how will that be helpful to getting a prior appointment date with regard to the scheduled date.
Great. I'm so happy you asked this question. This is such a good question. And I have a lot of insight about this question because during 2020, when the pandemic happened and they also shut down the embassies and consulates, I worked with a lot of exceptions for people who needed a visa stamping to be able to come back to the US, even though the consulates were shut down. So I know firsthand, from firsthand experience, what works, what doesn't work. It is amazing that your employer is willing to support you. Now, in terms of what the government is looking for, they want to know that it is of the national interest for you to be in the US as soon as possible. So what does that mean? It depends on the type of company that you work for, right? But let's say, remind me what type of company. You don't have to tell me the name, but you can tell me the field.
Yeah, I work for an educational institution, which is like a cap exempt institution.
Great, even better. So if you, just the fact that you have a cap exempt means that you already are in a good position to show that your presence in the US is of the national interest. So in terms of writing the letter, your employer will have to submit a very detailed letter explaining why they need you to be in the US as soon as possible and why that is of a benefit for the US. The attorney that handles your case is the one that will write the letter, and then the employer just signs it. But basically, in your situation, if you work for an educational institution, you can say that the new semester starts in January, right? You can show the type of research that you're doing. How is that essential for the government? And just keep in mind what this administration cares about. This administration cares about a lot about financial gain, about competition with other countries, and about technological development, and about being competitive, right? So when you're making the argument or you're providing this information to the attorney that's going to draft the letter, make these arguments, do the research, right? Show, look, This is what China and India are doing in terms of STEM education. This is how many millions they're saving the government every year by preparing their citizens so that they don't have to hire foreign talent. This is what I'm doing. This is the research that I'm doing. This is the type of education that I'm providing. These are the numbers. Officers love to see numbers. So if you're able to provide like graphs or numbers or to show the type of people that you're affecting, the type of sectors, the type of education, think about why it's important for you to be here as soon as possible. Why can't you wait 2-3 months like everyone else?
And all of this needs to be included in the emergency appointment, which you will submit at the embassy in India.
In the letter. So usually the way it works is that an attorney will reach out to her and will provide her with a questionnaire, asking questions. Why is it important for your employer to have you here as soon as possible? Why is your work of national interest? How are you helping the US? So then she will need to answer those questions. But my advice is to answer them as detailed as possible. Provide links for research, provide links for evidence that what you're saying is true, and then send that to the attorney. The attorney will look at that and they will write a letter that the employer will sign, and then likely they will include a few pieces of evidence showing that what they're stating in the letter is true.
All right.
Okay,
Okay.
one question. I just wanted to check if I'm like getting this right. So that is something I have to like work with the attorney, right?
Likely, yes. Usually they will reach out to the employer or the employee, but in my opinion, the employee is the one that knows their job the best. So if you're able to be involved and to be as proactive as possible, to find the research, to provide the guidance, to provide the evidence, I say be proactive.
Okay. So is this the same with the option that we see on the US visa slot says emergency request, or is this a separate one?
Right. So it could be that you could select it under the emergency request, and then the ones that I've worked on are usually based on the employer needs, right? Not on the employee. So
Oh,
the officers are more prone to approve an emergency request for a visa stamping when the emergency comes from the employer. Like the employer is like, we need this person as soon as possible because the semester is about to start. These are how many people are going to be affected. This is how our research is going to be affected, rather than, let's say, you need to be back because you don't want to pay rent while you're not here, or your children need to go to school.
yeah, makes sense. Thank you so much.
So the employer needs to email the consulate directly, providing all of this. Is that how it's going to work?
Right. So that's done through the attorney. So the attorney reaches out to the consulate, usually through email, on behalf of the employer.
All right. Okay. We have a question which is related to the tax implication that you touched upon. So it says, what are the tax implications from the employer end, or what policies should be in place as we are on the visa and now we are working from home country?
In terms of tax implications, I would definitely recommend that you speak to a tax professional that specializes in tax in the country where you're going for. I understand, especially India has some certain guidelines that if you work, I believe, more than certain days, then you are supposed to pay taxes. But I'm not familiar with tax law in India, so it's best that you speak to a professional. But definitely look into the tax implications. Now, in terms of US immigration compliance, again, if you have an H1B, H1Bs are tied, very tied, specifically to an employer and a location. So be mindful to that. Speak to an attorney. Talk about the different addresses that were listed on the LCA, how that affects your case, if an amendment is required. If you're on an L1, you have a little bit more flexibility. So it's not so tied to location. So you do have more flexibility in terms of working from home, but definitely search the tax implications before you work from home. But it is doable. People have done it, and people have been able to be successful doing that.
They just have to be like, smart about it and come up with some structure which doesn't violate the H1B rules yet allows you to work from India. I think what you said earlier, like a combination of leave plus work from home, we need to figure that out with the employer, right? This will be specific.
Yes, very specific to each
Yeah.
person and very specific to the employer and to the country.
Mhm. All right. The next question is about the 100K fee. So he wants to know if it's a healthcare tax exempt, healthcare cap exempt company, and the petition is going to be filed next year. What are the likelihood of USCIS giving a 100K exemption, and what is your experience for such cases?
In terms of healthcare, they're usually successful, especially because there is a huge shortage in the US for health services. And again, I will just do my due diligence, do research, and show, especially if you're working in an area that's being impacted by the shortage of healthcare professionals, tie it to the research, tie it to the location, tie it to the job that you have. But the ones that I see that are most successful are usually related to healthcare services.
All right. The next question is from Pawan, and he says his H1B visa and LCA expired in September 2025. He never traveled to the US. He's asking, can I travel on a B1, B2 and then apply for a new LCA for H1B? Is that possible? And if yes, then will 100K fee be applicable to him?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so he had H1B visa that expired in September 2025 and he never traveled to US. So he didn't use that visa at all.
Visa
So
or approval? Because it's
the
different,
visa.
like the
The
visa
visa.
stamp.
Yeah, that has already expired recently, September 2025. He wants to know, can he travel on a B1, B2 and then reapply or transfer for a new LCA for H1B? And will it require the 100K fee?
So technically, yes, but it's not recommended because when you apply for a tourist visa and you come into the US with a tourist visa, you're making the attestation that you're just coming here temporarily for a few months and that you don't have the intention to work in the US. And then especially if you don't wait the 90 days, right, to change the intent, if you file for an H1B, an officer could raise red flags and trigger that and think that you're trying to circumvent the law and the $100,000 fee. So it is not recommended, but in a case like this, especially so complex, it is important that you speak to a very experienced immigration attorney because there is a way to do it, but it needs a lot of planning and strategy.
Okay. Shiv Prasad, you have a question? You can unmute yourself and ask.
Yes, Sachi. Hi, Hannah. So basically, my name was picked up in the current year, and the petition is was filed on April. But so far, it's not even though 7 months have passed, it is still in processing state. So, what should be our take on this? Because I see a lot of things are going around in US, so I wanted to know what should be my next course of action from my end.
So currently, what type of status do you have?
It says it is still being processed when I check the US CAS status.
Are you in the US?
No, I'm in India. It's my first ever travel.
Okay, so you are in India and your employer filed an application with USCIS
Yes, that's right.
for an H1B?
Yeah.
So were you selected on the lottery? Is this a new H1B or is this a change of employer?
No, this is a fresh H1B that
Okay, so
filed in the same year.
okay, so you were selected in the lottery recently and then invited to apply. Your employer applied. Do you know the date that the application was filed with USCIS?
It was filed on June 1st, to be specific.
Okay, so it doesn't fall under the $100,000 fee. So it's still pending with USCIS.
Correct. That's right.
Right. My approach and my guidance will be to try to speak to your employer to see if they're open to upgrade the petition to premium processing. Because once you upgrade it to premium processing, you have a decision within 2 weeks and you have a better ability to plan, right? So if, let's say you get a request for evidence, at least you get it now and not in 6 months. So you need a decision as soon as possible. Once you get a decision, with that decision, then you can start thinking about the appointment for visa stamping and try to get into the US as soon as possible.
So with the regular stamping, what is there currently? So how long I have to wait until it is approved? Will that take more time to get it approved, or what should be the next move?
Right. So you cannot attend a visa stamping appointment unless you have an approval. So I think that's the first thing. You need an approval first. Regular processing for H1Bs are taking between 6 to 8 months to be approved. Just for the USCIS part. For if you upgrade it to premium processing, is 15 business days to get a decision.
Right. Thank you.
Of course, you're welcome.
Anna, there's some messages asking, how do I book a one-to-one session with you and what's the process to get in touch? So can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, of course. So, Sachi, you have a link, right, to schedule an appointment. When you schedule the appointment, you can request in the notes that you want to speak to me. We also provide a lot of guidance through our social media channels like Instagram. We are updating everything live, putting out blogs, following these news and updates very closely. So you can also talk to us through there. You can ask questions. We're always answering also through Reddit. Very, very on top of the news with what's going on right now. But again, if you want to speak to me directly, feel free to include in the request that you want to speak with me.
All right. So before we end, Gabriela, a quick, like a summary of what should be like the game plan for the next, let's say 1.5 to 2 months for everybody, those who are in US, those who are in India. What is your recommendation? What do we do?
Sure. For people who are in the US and have a valid visa stamp and a valid approval notice, likely they should be safe with traveling, especially if they don't belong to a country that could be deemed as high risk, right? Like the list of the 19 countries, or there is a lot of speculation that the government is going to add a few other countries like Senegal and other countries, but India is not included. Again, you are likely safe if you have an approval for an H1B and also your status. Please travel with a valid passport. Also remember that you not only have to monitor your H1B visa and your approval, you also have to monitor the I-94 record, and a lot of people forget about this. And if your passport is about to expire, the I-94 record will be truncated, will be cut short. So for example, you have an approval for an H1B that's valid for 2-3 years, but your passport is expiring in 6 months. If you travel outside of the US and you re-enter the US, the I-94 record will match your passport and the validity of your H1B will be cut short. And the only way to fix it is to get a new passport and then traveling out and in, or filing a new extension of status while you're here in the US. So just be mindful of that, having all your documents together, having your visa stamp, approval. Also, I recommend people to travel with copies of their last 3 months of pay stubs, because that shows that you have maintained valid status with immigration. Don't offer anything unless the officer asks for. Now, for the people that are in the US and are thinking about visa stamping and have an approved H1B, I'll say try to be mindful of the changes that are happening. If you can try to schedule an appointment, I say after the summer, that would be more helpful because, again, because of the World Cup, but also because of all the reschedules that were pushed back to April, May, June. For anyone that's thinking of filing a new extension of status, a new change of employer, and you're in the US, try to stay grounded in the US. Even if your application, your current H1B is about to expire, but you stay in the US and you file the extension of the US prior to your expiration, you will likely be protected with the 260 days, right? That you can continue working and living in the US until you run out of those 260 days or until the government issues the new approval. So keep in mind of that. For anyone that's abroad, that's stuck, and whose appointments were moved out, the first thing that I recommend is please speak to an immigration attorney. and speak to your employer to have a plan of approach. Try to update them as much as possible. Employers, especially from large companies, are not very well versed with immigration updates. When they hear a change in the law, like what just happened, they panic and they think that the application is going to be denied, and some of them even consider terminating the employment. Try to assure them that it doesn't mean a denial. Your application per se is not at risk. It's just they need to do further scrutiny and they need a little bit more time per application. So just keep them in the loop, keep them updated, keep monitoring for the availability throughout the night and throughout the middle of the night and early mornings. Snatch an appointment if you're able to. Just keeping in mind that the later one that you have will be canceled because you can have to. Keep on top of the news, keep updated. Again, we also release a newsletter letter every week. So just keep on top of that. Any breaking news, we also put them out within an hour. Any updates, speak to an immigration attorney. And Sachi, I'm more than happy to send you, because I'm working on a more concise and a structured guidance for people who are in this situation. So I'm more than happy to send you that, and then you can share it with your audience.
Yeah, sure. That'll be really helpful. So, guys, I put the link for our WhatsApp community. So, do join this community because that's where, as Gabriela is saying, all the latest updates we're able to provide you quickly. It takes us some time to make a video, but the WhatsApp is quicker and faster for us. So, do be a part of this community. And yeah, Gabriela, do share the guide. I think it'd be really helpful for everyone here. And thank you so much for answering all the questions and being so patient and so detailed in your responses. I think this was really helpful and certainly gave like a clarity of the situation. And plus, I think all of us got some ideas of what we can do from here.
Of course.
So thanks a lot. Yeah. And any more questions, feel free to put it in the WhatsApp group or on YouTube. And we can always reach back to Gabriela and get the answers for that. All right. Thank you so much, Gabriela.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Yeah. See you. Bye.